August 1485, Richard III was slain, his battered body vanishes, and England's last Plantagenet king fades into myth for 527 years. But when a skeleton with a twisted spine appears under a Leicester parking lot, science collides with legend. DNA seems to confirm the lost king, until a single genetic twist unravels certainty. In 2025, a bold new discovery turns everything we thought we knew upside down. What really lies beneath Richard's bones? Richard III fell at Bosworth Field on August 22, 1485. His reign ended by Henry Tudor's army. The chronicles of the time describe his battered body carried to Leicester, put on display for all to see. There was no royal funeral. Instead, the last Plantagenet king was laid in a hurried grave within the choir of Greyfriars Church, a Franciscan friary tucked inside the city walls. No coffin, no monument, just earth and haste. In the years that followed, the world changed around his resting place. The Tudor dynasty took hold, erasing traces of their rival. The friary itself vanished during the dissolution of the monasteries under Henry VIII. Stones from the church were carted away, the buildings pulled down, and the land parcelled out. Over centuries, the exact location of Greyfriars faded from memory. Maps changed, streets shifted, and the ground above Richard's grave became unremarkable. A patchwork of gardens, houses, and eventually a parking lot. Rumours and legends filled the silence left by missing records. Some said Richard's bones had been thrown into the river. Others claimed secret reburial. But no credible sighting or disinterment ever surfaced. For more than 500 years, the grave of England's last Plantagenet king remained lost, his fate swallowed by time and the city's shifting streets. The mystery endured, growing with every generation that searched in vain for proof. The question lingered, could a king truly disappear, leaving only myth behind? August 2012 brought a sense of anticipation to a nondescript car park in Leicester. Excavators broke ground, guided by the research of archaeologist Richard Buckley and the unwavering determination of writer Philippa Langley. Historic maps and ground-penetrating radar had narrowed the search to a small patch of asphalt, Trench 1. Langley, known for her deep intuition about Richard III's story, described an uncanny feeling as she stood above the marked spot. The team pressed on, bracing for disappointment, and yet hoping for something extraordinary. Within days, their trench cut through layers of modern debris and garden soil. Then the edge of a human skeleton appeared. Field logs from that August record the moment. The excavation team fell silent and then exchanged astonished whispers. The spine, exposed in the earth, displayed a pronounced sideways curve. Severe thoracic scoliosis, unmistakable even to the untrained eye, matched centuries-old descriptions of Richard III's crooked back, though not the exaggerated myths of a hunchback. The skeleton lay in what had once been the Friary Choir, precisely where chroniclers claimed the king was buried. Closer examination revealed more. The bones showed evidence of violent trauma, deep blade wounds to the skull, injuries to the ribs and pelvis, all consistent with a death in battle. The burial itself was crude and hurried, with the body placed awkwardly in a shallow grave, hands possibly bound. No coffin, no royal trappings. The evidence in the ground was stark, but tantalizing. For the first time in 5 centuries, the search for a king's lost body had yielded something real, something that demanded answers only science could provide. Radio. Carbon dating placed the remains squarely in the late 15th to the early 16th century, between 1450 and 1540. The skeleton's age at death, sex, and injuries all matched the historical record of Richard III. But the real test of identity came in the laboratory, where teams worked under strict clean room conditions to prevent contamination. Every scientist who handled the remains had their own DNA sequenced, ensuring no stray genetic material could cloud the results. Turi King, a geneticist at the University of Leicester, led the DNA analysis. She focused on mitochondrial DNA, which passes from mother to child unchanged and survives well in ancient bones. Samples from 2 living maternal line relatives, Michael Ibsen, a Canadian carpenter, and Wendy Doldig, both descended from Richard's sister Cecily Neville, were sequenced alongside DNA from the skeleton. The match was striking. a perfect mitochondrial DNA sequence between the remains and Ibsen, and just a single base difference with Duldig, well within the expected range for distant relatives. These results were independently replicated by a French laboratory, ruling out laboratory error. The convergence of archaeological, osteological, and genetic evidence brought a level of certainty rarely seen in historical investigations. For Michael Ibsen, the discovery was deeply personal, a connection to a story that had spanned centuries. For scientists, the rigorous protocols and duplicate sequencing left little room for doubt. The identification stood on solid ground, and confidence in the result ran high. The Y chromosome analysis introduced a complication no one expected. Unlike mitochondrial DNA, which is inherited through the maternal line and had matched perfectly, the Y chromosome passes strictly from father to son. When geneticists compared the Y DNA from the skeleton to living male line descendants of the Plantagenet family, the sequences did not align. The modern Plantagenet men carried a Y haplogroup known as R1b U1FAM2, while the remains from Leicester showed a different signature entirely. This divergence is called a non-paternity event, a break in the biological father-to-son chain, which could have occurred at any point across more than 19 generations. In royal and noble families, such breaks are not as rare as many imagine. Centuries of wars, shifting alliances, and private scandals left plenty of room for the official record to stray from biological reality. The mismatch does not erase the identification, because a single misattributed father anywhere in the line would cause exactly this result. Most geneticists caution that over hundreds of years, the odds of at least one non-paternity event are surprisingly high. The convergence of archaeological evidence, radiocarbon dating, and the near-perfect maternal DNA match still stands. Yet the Y chromosome puzzle remains, a reminder that even the most robust historical stories can hide unexpected twists, and that the search for truth often leads to deeper questions. A new Y-DNA report, released online in late 2025, sent ripples through the genetic history community. Researchers at the Wellcome Sanger Institute and a German ancient DNA laboratory said they had resequenced the Greyfriars skeleton's Y chromosome, this time at 30 times coverage. Their analysis pointed to haplogroup QM242, a rare lineage absent from modern Plantagenet surname carriers. The announcement arrived as a preprint, not a peer-reviewed paper, and included detailed contamination controls. These controls included UDG-treated libraries, index samples, and negative controls, showing less than 0.5% exogenous reads. The labs posted summary statistics but withheld the raw sequencing data, and that prompted immediate calls for transparency. Established ancient DNA specialists, including Turi King and colleagues at University College London, responded with caution. They urged full public release of the data and independent replication before accepting any revision to the skeleton's Y haplogroup. On social media and in academic forums, ancient DNA researchers dissected the reported methods, emphasizing the need for careful validation in cases where ancient DNA is highly degraded. The debate unfolded in real time, with scientists, historians, and even genealogists weighing in on the standards required to challenge the established identification. Legal custody of Richard III's remains became a matter for the High Court after the discovery in 2012. Competing claims from Leicester and York, along with lobbying by distant relatives, drew national attention. The court examined whether descendants or civic groups had a right to decide where the last Plantagenet king should rest. In 2015, the judges ruled that the original exhumation license, granted to the University of Leicester, was lawfully issued, and that the remains would be reburied at Leicester Cathedral. The judgment cited the absence of direct descendants and the need for stability after 5 centuries. The Ministry of Justice license required reburial in sacred ground, and Leicester Cathedral assumed custodianship. Ethical policy now demands that any further scientific testing must meet strict standards. Destructive sampling is only allowed for compelling reasons, with approval from both the cathedral and government authorities. British Academy guidelines insist on transparency, minimal harm, and independent replication before any extraordinary claim is accepted. The identification of Richard III set a high bar. Only independently replicated, contradictory evidence could reopen the question. This approach balances the pursuit of knowledge with respect for the dead and the responsibilities of those who guard their remains. Genetic evidence now raises new questions about royal identity, inheritance, and the stories we accept as fact. As science uncovers unexpected truths from centuries-old bones, history remains open to challenge. And our understanding of the past depends on how willing we are to keep questioning. What do you think?